Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Growth Code. I've got a really special guest on here for today. Meet Jimmy Lai.
Hi, everyone.
Jimmy is a successful entrepreneur and attorney out of Oklahoma. His firm handles a variety of practice areas. Jimmy and I go way back. We actually met at a conference close to 3 years ago now. I think it actually was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
And, we sort of stayed in touch. I just really liked him. I thought he was a really genuinely nice guy, and I thought he had a good vision for his firm and his business. We sort of stayed in touch every 3 to 6 months just to check in on how each other are doing. And now we're starting to see each other a lot more at conferences. It's been great to spend time with you. But today I'm bringing him on here because he's got a lot of lessons that he's learned in building his business and his practice that he wanted to share with you guys. Um, the main area where we're going to go today is sort of past, present, and future. Where do we see, the past lessons helping us today? Where is the firm for Lion Turner today? Where is it going in the future? And where's the future of the law going? And then we'll wrap up. So sit back, enjoy, and let's get started. All right, so let's get into this. So, Jimmy, I know that you have a really interesting background. Tell us a little bit about, you know, uh, just yourself, where you grew up, where you are living today, and how that's influenced the building of your business and your practice.
Sure. So I'm Jimmy Lai. I'm from Taiwan originally, and I actually grew up in South Dakota for 5 years. After that, I spent my high schools in Japan, Germany, and England. Ultimately, I ended up in Oklahoma doing my undergrad in marketing, and then, became a car salesman for 1 year. And ultimately, first day on the job, I said, maybe I should go to law school. So that's like the short story of how I became, went to law school. And the story of, why I started my own law firm was that, being international, it was really tough for me to find job opportunities. As most would know, if you want to hire a foreign worker, you have to go through the H-1B process or doing the employment-based petitions. And most U.S. employers are not familiar with the immigration process, so they're more likely to say no to a foreign worker. Or essentially, every time I filled out the application, will you now or in the future require a work visa? Every time I say, I'm honest, even though my last name says Lie, but I check that box and it says, within 5 minutes, I'll get an automatic response telling me that I'm not qualified to work. So that's the hurdle I was facing, was when I was about to graduate law school, COVID happens. So then, I decided, okay, maybe I need to pick up another degree. So when I graduated with a business and a law degree, uh, I was still jobless. I applied to many different firms and businesses, all telling me no. And so luckily, I found out about this visa called the ET visa, which allowed me to invest my own money to start a law firm. And that gives me the ability to stay 5 years at a time, renewable as long as I keep the business operating. So that's kind of like the main reason was, I had a US law degree. It would be useless if I went back to Taiwan. Fortunate to have a visa option to be able to start my own law firm. I never really wanted to go down the entrepreneurial route. My mom was a started her own business for 40 years and ran that language school kindergarten back home. And that I saw, the 24/7 that she put into running her business and all the people problems she had to deal with, all the stress that she had. And so actually, I just wanted to be a worker bee, just clock in and clock out and don't have to worry about any other stuff. So that was my original plan. But I was kind of forced into this role to be able to live and work in the US.
So, really interesting background. So, let's break that down a little bit. You bounced around from South Dakota to Germany to England, then back to Oklahoma. Did I get that right? I
Yes. Yeah.
one trip along.
So yeah, so South Dakota, then Japan, Germany, England, and I actually went back to Taiwan for 2 years, and I actually worked for my mom. And the reason was because for Taiwanese citizens, we had to serve mandatory military service, and at that time, it was actually 1 year service. But the medical process and the process to getting, you know, getting into the military took a while. So, and my sister was 2 year younger than me. So we figured, we can probably wait 2 years and then go off to university. So at first, I ended up not serving, but the reason was because I thought, my feet were flat. So they were flat, but they told me, my too bad, your feet's not flat enough, but you are fat enough. So that was the reason that, so I didn't have to serve anymore because I was too fat, and they put a stamp on my passport saying I'm forever exempted from military service. They didn't put the reason on there, but they put a stamp on there, and that allowed me, because they checked your passport back then, if you have that stamp or not, to be able to leave the country. And you're only able to leave if you're enrolled in university or you're exempt from service.
Interesting. So you wound up in Oklahoma. I'm going to ask what people, may want to ask. I'm just going to be direct about this. You wound up
Sure.
in the heart of the US. What are some challenges that you've been faced being a foreign business owner really in the heart of the US?
Sure. I guess the good thing is that because I grew up in South Dakota, so I didn't have that much of an accent. So I didn't really face too much of those, prejudice or any biases. I was able to get by for the most part without facing those issues. However, when I was running ads on Facebook and, we saw some feedback calling us, you know, DEI firms, and because we look different from what traditional people think that attorney is a white male, right? So we didn't deliberately hire differently, but just the makeup of our firm was quite diverse. And so when we put an ad out with our group picture, people were commenting that, oh, another DEI law firm, we don't want to hire them. So those kind of comments do come out sometimes, but for the most part, I've learned to ignore it. As especially kind of being more in the public eye, try to, ignore those voices.
Yeah, it's not to make this about me, but when I had my first few videos on social media get a decent amount of views, for as many views as you get, usually the loudest people are the trolls. The trolls are the ones that are actually helping you because the algorithm loves engagement. So
Yeah,
the way I kind of started to think about it is, thank you. You just gave me some points on social media for me to get free impressions. So thank you for spending 5 replays of my ad, a comment, because Facebook thinks, oh, wow, this person loves it. Let's deliver it to more people like this.
yeah.
So, I learned to spin it, but yes, I'm sure, the first few comments weren't the easiest for me either, so I get it.
Yeah. And on top of that, we also have a local Asian Chamber of Commerce that were really supportive of the Asian businesses, and that's kind of have a good support system. And people, for the most part, in Oklahoma are nice. And when you tell them that you started your own business, people are generally nice about it.
Yeah, I think there is a respect that people have for it, because it's not easy. If your first few years looked like my first few years, my tax returns weren't the prettiest. But, what are some of these early lessons that you learned from your world travels, from growing up in South Dakota to, where you are today? What are some lessons you picked up along the way?
Uh, Something that I can think of, when kind of directly linked to the world travels, is that kind of like understanding the different cultures, and being in those different environments have made me quite adaptable, because you can think about it, like every year in high school I was pretty much in different countries. So like freshman year in South Dakota, sophomore year in Japan, junior year in Germany, senior year in England, and they were all different cultures, different kind of people. So that kind of made me adaptable in a sense that that gave me the advantage of understanding people a little bit better, and being able to adapt to the situations. And I think as a business owner, that's the advantage. One of the advantage we have is speed. So the speed to adapt and to kind of adjust to the market conditions, and that's kind of what made us grow pretty fast and to be able to survive in the market.
So let's look at the firm today. So, what practice areas, you can even throw a link to your website. I'll make sure that that's listed under this as a part of the description, but, you know, plug your firm a little bit. Talk about the people that work there. You already said that it's a little bit more of a diverse team, just how it, wound up. But I'd love to understand the makeup of your firm, the practice areas, and sort of the culture that you're building?
Sure. Um, and sorry, I'm going backwards a little bit. That another lesson I learned early on was I'm my own bottleneck. I don't have to do everything myself. That was one of the key lessons I learned from the conference we attended, and the coaching that I got from various other, and talking to other law firm owners. That was the key thing, was you're your own bottleneck. And for me, starting my own law firm with zero experience as an attorney and zero experience as a business owner, especially I wanted to show them I'm good enough, because the imposter syndrome was really strong. It's like, who am I to start my own law firm with no experience as an attorney and no experience as a business owner? What made me, eligible or qualified to do this? So in that sense, it made me want to learn everything. So I became my own bottleneck. I wanted to learn how to be a receptionist. I want to learn how to be a secretary. I want to learn how to implement this. So I was wearing many hats. Many times in the early days, I was the one handling everything. I was Jimmy the secretary, or hold on a second, let me talk to the attorney. And now, the good thing that I have a business partner, so I can kind of rely on, okay, let me talk to the other attorney to kind of give me a little bit of a space. But yeah, I was doing everything myself, and that was one of the early things I learned, was I didn't have to do it myself. I can start delegating these tasks, the tasks that I don't have to do. So I began trusting others to do these. So, slowly, it wasn't an overnight process. It took a while for me to kind of trust someone, because no one's going to care as much for your business as yourself.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
so,
when your name's on the billboard, no one cares about it as much as you. Um, and I think you're hitting on a really important point though. Like, I was lucky enough that my dad was a lawyer, so I grew up around it. I was the person, scanning things to the cloud or doing reception or getting medical records. So, I had a little bit of that experience where it's really hard to delegate something if you yourself couldn't do it. So what you're saying is spot on. Like, you needed to know how to do reception to build the plan for someone else to do it. And as a business owner, you kind of have to wear all those hats to be able to take the hats off. So I think
correct.
did that the right way. So, anything else on that you wanted to fit?
Yeah. So, and then to also add that, from that experience, being able to delegate, so I delegated the hiring process as well. Our first key hire was a business manager instead of like a secretary, paralegal, assistant. It was actually a business manager that taught us how to kind of turn a law practice into more of a business mindset. And so he was a key hire, and then delegating the hiring process to him instead of myself, because I tend to be more optimistic. I try to see the good in people. So when it comes to me, I tend to say, "Okay, you're hired," without really doing much vetting. So I was more of a hire fast and fire slow type of person. But now we flip that around. We're doing, really hiring in stages, making sure that the person we hire for fit more than skill nowadays. But eventually, I think we'll get to a point where we can afford to hire for the skill and for the fit. And so right now, on the early stages, we don't have the budget to go and get A players, so we get maybe B or Cs, but have great cultural fit, so we can all still work well together.
I mean, I still think that you may keep that strategy for longer. I think it's less I'm hiring I'm not trying to pick on you. I think I have a little bit of a different perception of it. I think culture is what makes an A player. So if they're a
Mhm.
culture fit, then they're an A player. And if your infrastructure is designed in a way that you can scale, you know, you train on the skill you want, the way you want it done, as long as they've got a great attitude and are a culture fit. So for me, we want someone to have the general experience if it's required. I mean, if you're hiring a trial lawyer to handle a specific practice area, that's different. But you still want them to be a culture fit. And if you're valuing their outcomes of their cases more than them not being a jerk to your other staff, then, you're going to have other problems down the line.
Right.
So, on the non-lawyer, non-specialty stuff, you know, a culture fit is what makes our A players every time. At least over here, we've had that experience.
Right. So yeah, I think those were the key things, like understanding. being adaptable to situations, and then being able to recognize that I'm my own bottleneck and delegating those tasks took us from initially I was only full time. My business partner, my law partner, was only part time. To three of us being full time at the end of the first year, and we were only doing, I believe it was 155,000 for the first year, and then the second year, we were fortunate to get great people on board, and the hiring was key to our success, which scaled us to seven figures, to seven figures. So it was around 1.1 was where we ended at the second year, and this year is our third year, which we are currently on pace to be around the 2 to 2.3 range.
That's
Is what
great.
we're on pace for. But my challenge right now is that because I refuse to niche down from the early days. We have niche down from the beginning, but it was really hard for me to uh, kind of turn away business because as long as we're competent, we were taking them. But now that I realize, and I tell others, yeah, really, if you can take a niche, go ahead. But in my position, we didn't really have the prior experiences, and we didn't know what we were good at yet. So we pretty much took on as many as we can. But right now, we focused on um, personal injury, family, criminal, immigration. So these four are our core kind of practice areas that we're kind of niching down to. But the difficulty for us is that because we have so many practice areas, it's really hard to have a SOP because the difference in the practice areas, they have different processes, different
Drastic.
workflows. It's really drastic. So that's the challenge with us. And that's why even though we may be on pace to do 2.3 area, uh, my challenge is that we kind of have a lot of employees. We have about 22 full-time, part-time, and remote virtual assistants. So that's quite large. And the ratio is not ideal because this book here, this is the book that I'll tell everyone to go ahead and get a copy of and read. One of the things that I'm learning is that maybe the revenue to employee ratio should be you know around 2 to 300,000 per employee, and based on how many people we have right now, well, we're not even close to being optimal. So that's one of my challenges right now. Is we do have a lot of people, and we need to kind of figure out where we can be efficient because we have people in all the different practice areas.
Yeah, I mean, so are you planning to keep those 4 practice areas indefinitely?
Yeah, I think these four are the key ones. The way we structure our law firm is the our law firm, Lion Turner, is the umbrella corporation, and with each division, we have division leaders that kind of come on board as on a partnership track. So they'll be partners, and they'll earn equity within those profit centers. So each division will be treated as a profit center. We'll establish an LLC under the umbrella corporation. So each division will be its own entity in a way with the umbrella corporation over it. So I think we identified that those four are the key practice areas we will really want to focus on, and especially in personal injury. Since May, we've been really focused on trying to grow out the personal injury. Right now, I would say 50% of our business is from the family law.
Okay. So, uh, these next few years, I guess you're gonna learn a lot. You're gonna learn which case types are profitable versus which ones are not,
Mhm.
how much it costs to open a case. I'm really curious to see when we do this again in a year, where you're now branching to. Because it is interesting to be handling so many core practice areas. Um, I don't know that there's a right or wrong. I can tell you that I did it a different way, and you, on paper, are generating more revenue faster than I definitely have. So, there is no right or wrong way to approach it as long as you're being focused in how you're approaching it. So that's great.
Right. Yeah, and then with personal injury too, I think that the runway is quite long for the return. We just
Correct.
recently got a settlement check, and that was one of our earlier ones we did, which is probably like 10 months ago. So we really have to, and plus,
Personal injury.
yeah, yeah, it is, and plus, like the cost of acquisition on personal injury cases is quite high. So we
Mhm.
gotta have it front that plus any expenses. So it is a long process, and so right now we've just been fortunate to be able to have family law that kind of helps support all the divisions we have.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's cases that generate cash flow today, and there's cases that potentially could be your biggest margin cases, but are the most painful to get there.
Yeah.
And, something that I've kept my eye on is how do you do both? And it looks like, you've learned, the fastest way to get to 2 million is to handle cases that are not personal injury, most likely.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Uh,
that sounds great. So, how would you describe if you had one sentence to describe your company culture? How would you describe it?
I would say our company culture is that's a good question, and that's something I'm trying to work on because we do have like core values on our website and our mission statements, and that's something that I think we're going to revamp.
So
But why?
don't be overly formulaic. Do you use Microsoft Teams to chat among your team?
Yeah, so we use Google Chat to chat
Yeah.
amongst our team.
Let's say that you see your full team Google chat and you read through the last week. What is the feel of that room?
I think we've created a team where it's supportive. Um, we're supportive of one another. Typically when you've gone through law school and you know how law students are and attorneys are, and I don't like it to see when we're competitive in nature, but then we're also could be mean to each other. So I guess the culture we have is try to be as supportive as possible. We obviously have KPIs and expectations, but we are creating a place where it's supportive. Like, hey, I gotta take a day off. Can you cover for me? And so we're trying to create an environment where we're supportive of one another. So I feel like whenever people ask, like, can someone run this to the courthouse? And we're like, yeah, I volunteer to do that. So we're fostering a team that's supportive of one another internally, and I think externally that translates to the word that I really like is empathy, and I even wrote about it last night, and I think that's what sets us apart from most law firm is the word empathy. We, time is money, but when people finally reach out to us, my stance is that when they reach out to us, people already don't like lawyers. Like the top three things that people don't like are lawyers, used car salesmen, and politicians. And I have two. I was a used car salesman, and I'm an attorney now. So people already don't like lawyers. And so when they have to reach out to lawyers, it's because they have legal issues, they have problems, and they're at a point in their life that it's a low point of their life. So
Yep.
when people call us, I want especially our sales team, our intake team, and to be empathetic and to give them the time to share their story, obviously within reason. Like we make sure that at least they get their story out. We listen, we take notes, and if we truly can't help them, we at least point them in the right direction. Like, hey, check out legal aid. They might have resources here, or this clinic that we know of. You could try them because they take your kind of your cases, or if there are other attorneys that are around here that require a lesser retainer or bill at a lower rate. Well, okay, maybe check out these attorneys we can send you to. So at least, if we can't help them, we at least try to give some value for calling us and thank them for calling us. So I think that's what separates us a little bit from most law firms. Instead of diving straight into like, oh, if like a personal injury client prospect calls us, and instead of going straight into, okay, what's your name, what's your phone number, what's your contact information, where did the accident happen? At least we start with, I'm so sorry to hear that you've been this, and thank you for calling us. You called the right place. That give them the assurance, reassuring them that they made the right decision calling us. So I think that's what we're continuing working on. Sometimes we kind of fall behind because of the volume of calls we have, but that's the core thing that I really want to maintain is that our empathy is there all the time.
That's great. So, uh, let's transition a little bit onto what you're doing on LinkedIn. Obviously, you and I have known each other for a long time, and we are in a couple masterminds together. We're in a couple of coaching groups where we see each other. I've seen what you've been doing, and I would love for you to explain to those listening right now, what is your intention behind your LinkedIn content? If you have a goal with your content, what is it, whether it's transactional or just build relationships or whatever. What are you doing over there, and why should people be paying attention to LinkedIn as a platform?
Sure. So I really didn't pay attention to LinkedIn until, and I'm going to give a shout out to David Bruno. In one of our coaching conferences, he shared about his LinkedIn strategy being a referral strategy, and that got me thinking. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like if we even get one referral a month or even a year, that's like an additional. Let's say if it's a one referral a month, and each case is worth 5,000 to us. So that's an additional 60 grand in revenue just by getting one referral a month on LinkedIn. And back then, I only had about like I think 800 followers back then, back last September actually. So and now I'm at about 8,000 something. So that's about 8,000 increase in the whole year. I looked at LinkedIn as that at first, like a referral strategy. But if people look at my LinkedIn now, they see it pretty much all over the place. Because I was trying out different things. I wanted to share my story about starting my own business on the E2 visa and seeing if I can get referrals that way, which turns out there's not a lot of E2 potential E2 visa clients on LinkedIn. Mostly it's B2B, and so then I saw it as maybe a top of mind play, like a top of funnel play, where I'm just building my brand and building my awareness. And so I've shifted the content into more a broad top of funnel type content, talking about leadership, talking about starting my own law firm, sprinkling in immigration so that when people think about things that hopefully they'll think about me. So when and I've had some referrals that way in the last 3 months when their friends were asking about immigration, and so like, oh yeah, there's this immigration attorney on LinkedIn called Jimmy, who maybe hates cheese. So that's another thing, like those kind of information that like trying to make what I put on there sticky so that they remember, oh, this attorney Jimmy, he came from Taiwan, and he started his own law firm and built it into 7 figures within 2 years. So that's kind of like the message I'm crafting, and I guess ultimately right now on the side is like a passion project of teaching other professionals that you don't have to be boring. And that was what I thought of myself at first when I started out my LinkedIn journey. I was like, who's gonna want to learn about lawyers? Like lawyers are typically boring jobs, and it's not like Suits. It's not like the TV show Suits. So I thought, who's gonna want to hear about my story? But what I learned is that everyone have their own unique story. Like Ethan, I bet you have a unique story of growing up in your dad's law firm and learning to do this or witnessing this or witnessing that, and how that story affected how you do business now. So those are a story that can kind of be brought out. And so for me, it was like, um, being rejected to starting my own law firm, crossing the ocean, having this American dream, but then, all the doors were shut to me. So I had to create my own door and build my own house. So those are kind of the things. And ultimately, sorry for the long-winded answer. Just trying to think off the top of my head. Ultimately, I guess it's, creating a community to show other professionals, um, how to be unforgettable. So that's why I call the community on school the unforgettable professionals.
Yep.
And that's kind of like my passion project where I'm learning how to coach others, how to teach others to show up differently on LinkedIn. And ultimately, I guess my 10, 15-year plan is to find people like me. So I always say like I was overlooked. People didn't really believe in me. I was more in the middle to bottom of my school ranking. And I was overlooked, but I was able to build a firm where I'm now, employing 22 other people. So my long-term goal is to reach people that are driven like me, that may be introverted or that may be for some reason or another overlooked. So I want to be able to reach those people while either in law school or they're currently working to reach out to me. And maybe I still need to refine my own processes and systems, but I want to be able to help them and say go ahead and join my firm, and I'll help you start a firm in, let's say, in Seattle or in Dallas if they want to start their own firm. So okay, these are the systems and processes we know in starting our own firm. And kind of like Morgan and Morgan in a way, but on a much smaller scale and more personable. And say, okay, like this, you've been to law school, you couldn't find any jobs, but you're driven. You want to succeed, but no one's giving you an opportunity. So, I want them to be able to reach out to me in, it's gonna take a while for me to be there, but maybe in 5 to 10 years' time that
It sounds
they
like a
feel
really
open to reach
interesting
out.
recruiting funnel for culture fits.
Yeah. So it may be that, so that, maybe that strategy behind LinkedIn is like being really transparent with how I run my business and people really liking the message and understanding the culture. And that's how I got one off council all the way out in the East Coast in Vermont, New Hampshire area. And where, there's an off council relationship there, and she's joined us. So it's hard to imagine that there we have an off council all the way there. We also have a remote attorney in Seattle currently, and on our team doing immigration work. So,
Nice.
so that in that sense, I didn't really have to spend too much money recruiting attorneys. They see the way I do business, and naturally they reach out. So I think the evolution of it would be I want to figure out how to franchise Lion Turner. Right now, it's a small brand, but I want to figure out how we can franchise the concept, the way we do business, and then just help them. If you want to just be an attorney and work, okay, we'll set up the back office, we'll do everything for you, and you just focus on being an attorney. Or you want to be a business owner, okay, we can have all systems in place and you run the business with us.
That's great. I mean, figuring out how to franchise, you might need to freshen up on the law changes out of Arizona and Utah and
Mhm.
DC, because you can now have non-lawyers get involved in your law firm in
Yeah.
places. So, really interesting. So let's transition to the future then. We kind of dabbled into it. It sounds like you have a pretty clear long-term picture of the firm. Let's drill in for the lawyers listening to this. You know, where do you want your law firm's case handling to be in a year from now?
Sure. In terms of the case handling, those four areas is what we're focused on a year from now. And part of the coaching group that we're in, um, something just stuck out to me. Like, you can keep doubling. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do that. So the first year, 150,000 to 1.1. That wasn't exactly double, but now we're on pace to double from our previous year. So a year from now, I would like to double again to the 4 to 5 million range. And ultimately, I have and I'm going back to that coaching again. Was we also did a 3-year vivid vision, and that really helped. And kind of see where you want to be 3 years from now, and work backwards to see how to achieve that. And maybe I was overly ambitious. I put by the end of 2027, I want to achieve 8 figures. I want to hit $10 million by 2027. And so I'm working back from that, and that's why we added PI this year. Is that even though we had a lot of immediate cash flow cases, but I think in the Oklahoma market, in order to get to the 8-figure range, we really need to kind of start growing out our PI along with all the other revenues channels that we have.
Yeah, and consider monetizing referrals as a huge part of that, because what gets me there over the next stretch is not cases I'm keeping. Cases I'm keeping are a big part of it, but the cases that I am not a medical malpractice attorney and can't get a $55 million verdict on, but I know the guy who can, know the gal that can.
Right.
They're the ones that are going to send me a check for 8 figures on one of those cases. So, consider that as part of it. But
Yeah.
what else in terms of the general legal field? What are things that you think people need to keep their eye on over this next 3 years that you think are going to be a major part of the, law firm ecosystem over the next few years?
Definitely AI. I think AI is changing the landscape and changing how we do business. And I'm on the team that AI can't and shouldn't replace lawyers, but AI can significantly replace a lot of tasks. And that's kind of goes back to the challenge I'm currently facing is that, I have 22 people.
Mhm.
There are some things that maybe AI can do much better, and you know, they never, uh, I want to say this, but they never complain or whine about work, and they never, call in sick. They never say, oh, I got to leave early. AI, should, it work 24/7 in
You
theory.
don't need to train 10 people
Yeah.
on the same content.
Right. So that's something that I think AI will really change how we do business in the next 3 years, especially maybe on the intake side where, right now we only have Monday through Friday for actual humans. 'Cause, 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 'c from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then Saturday and Sundays, I'm kind of dabbling into trying out the different AI tools. And I understand, Ethan, your company also has potential AI solution. So that's something that we'll be discussing off camera as well, of how to implement that in our law firm.
So, Jimmy, I know that as you were talking about with AI in the future and having intake being a big part of it and some of these other tasks. So, I know that you and myself, we are now engaged in a new product that we just released, Intake 360, which will be human validated closers and intake staff overseeing and collaborating with an AI intake process. So, I know that you are actually our third client to go live on Intake 360. So, I know it hasn't been too long, but tell us a little bit about your experience so far on that and maybe other AI products that you have your eye on.
Sure. Yeah, like you said, we were pretty early. We were the third, adoptee to your new solution, and the entire process has been pretty great. Your team was really detail oriented and really wanted to understand our whole process. So that implementation period took a little bit of time, but we were able to tell your team what we wanted in our intake, and then your team have learned how we do our intake, get the documents from us, and we're really glad to be working with you because your team just recently signed up one case for us already. We didn't have to do anything. So what happened was, lead came in, it notified your team. Your team went ahead and called immediately, and then sent out the documents and also requested a Google review. And we didn't have to do any of that. And that's one of the great things about working with your team, was that we didn't have necessarily the coverage sometimes. We didn't have the speed, and so you guys were dedicated to doing that. So right now, like, working with you guys, we're really happy with the results we've gotten.
Appreciate it. I know it's early. I want to be getting you hundreds of cases over these next few years signed up. But that's not necessarily the only reason I have you here, but I appreciate that I got the chance to have you on here after you've gone live. But, in terms of the future of the space, what are some other legal products that you think that our listeners should have their eye on?
So in the immigration space, there's a tool called Drafty AI, which helps immigration attorneys. And so, like, going back to the whole AI changing the landscape, it really is like love solutions, software solutions are coming up with AI tools to really speed up the process and help attorneys be more efficient. So we're now using Drafty AI to analyze our immigration cases and also draft petitions on our behalf. And obviously, with all AI, we always want to follow the 80/20 rule, which is, rely on the 80%, but 20% has to be vetted by human. And so that's kind of, with everything AI.
Last eyes.
Yeah.
Last eyes. If you're
Yes.
submitting something to a judge, last eyes needs to be the person signing it.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So that's one of the tool we've been using. On the family side and on criminal defense side, we haven't really used much AI tools. Mostly, we're looking into communication tools. Like, there's a company called Hona that integrates with MyCase. We use
I use
MyCase.
Mona, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, that's a great tool to kind of help us communicate with clients and letting them know where their cases are in the progress, especially in the family law practice area. Clients tend to be a little bit more, you need to touch the clients more often with more communications, and that's what they expect of it. So, on those practice areas, we're kind of looking into more like communication side. So that's why I'm looking into AI tools that can do outbound, that can outbound and actually collect documents. That's something that we're looking into. Like, okay, sometimes we can't reach them, so AI can, maybe there's a workflow or triggers and say, okay, we just click on this button, and it's okay for a family law client. We need to check if the intake questionnaire is there already. If it's not, do we need to get bank statements? And AI will call and say, okay, we need this. Can you log into your portal and submit these for us, or send them a secure Dropbox link or something where they can just upload and then gather it and then give it to the legal assistants and the paralegal to compile for the attorney. So that's something we're looking into, those solutions.
Nice. So, uh, just a couple more questions for you. Um, Most important, why should somebody refer you an Oklahoma personal injury case? You got some lawyers listening to this. Let's say you got people in Texas, California, high volume states nearby. Why are you the firm they should refer the case to?
Well, honestly speaking, experience-wise, we probably will not outcompete all the other 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old law firms in our area. But where we show out differently is, obviously the empathy aspect, where we give each client a dedicated time. We make sure that they feel the care. So that's another slogan that we sometimes use is that we are lawyers that who care about you. And so that would be, I think you might want to consider referring to us because of, when you refer someone, your reputation's on the line as well. That you want to make sure that who you refer to are getting the care and getting the service that they deserve. And so while we may not be able to boast the experience of all the great lawyers around us, we will be dedicated to each and every client. We make sure that we have a manageable caseload that every client deserves the time they get with an attorney, and obviously, we will be working as hard as we can to match the skills of all the great attorneys around us.
All right. Anything else that you think that the listeners should know about Lyon Turner, yourself, and anything else you want to chime in with?
Yeah, thanks for giving me the additional time. So, personally, I'm an immigration attorney, and that's the irony of my situation. I'm here on the E2 visa, which is a non-immigrant intent visa. So, as a non-immigrant visa holder, I'm helping other people get their green card and citizenship. And so, I tell my clients or prospects when they come to me, I tell them that I'm still trying to go for my American dream. And in order for me to achieve my American dream, I have to help you achieve yours first. So that's kind of like what my mentality is. I need to help a lot of people achieve their American dreams before I can eventually achieve mine. And so if anyone's listening, I would love your referral for immigration cases. We can service with immigrations nationwide. So we can serve nationwide, also globally. We do primarily business immigration cases like the EB-1, NIW, the H-1B, the employment-based petitions, the E-1s, E-2s, the L visa. So all those are kind of in our wheelhouse, and we would love your referral and love to develop a relationship with you to kind of maximize, the reputation you have and to service your clients.
Great. That's great. Thanks for being here, Jimmy. It was great. I'm going to make sure that there's easy ways to get in touch with you in the description below this. Thank you for spending time with me. I think this is going to be a great episode for our listeners.